Amanda Hopkins spent her nights polishing floors and her days fading into the background of a company that never saw her, until one evening on the 48th floor of Brooks and Holt Enterprises, everything changed. What began as a humiliating joke became a silent revolt, played out in pawns and bishops, each move rewriting the rules of who belongs where. Amanda wasn't supposed to challenge power, and she definitely wasn't supposed to win. But when overlooked brilliance meets unchecked arrogance, the outcome isn't just unexpected, it's unforgettable. Before we go any further, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's story might just change the way you see everything. Come on, she's just the maid. Let her play. We could use some entertainment. The words rolled off Ethan Brooks' tongue like a joke too dry for the occasion. Casual, unbothered, and perfectly rehearsed for a room full of people who only knew how to laugh upward. It was said with a smirk, like flicking lint from an expensive blazer. But once spoken, it cut through the executive lounge like a cold wind. The room erupted in easy, hollow laughter. Crystal glasses clinked. Someone from HR choked on a grape. A senior vice president let out a theatrical "ooh" and pointed to the center of the lounge, where a grand chessboard sat like a centerpiece nobody actually used. In the corner, near the polished marble column, Amanda Hopkins didn't flinch. She stood with her cleaning cart, gloves tucked into the side pocket of her faded black uniform, name tag scratched from years of service. She didn't lower her head. She didn't force a smile. Her eyes, still, calm, too quiet for a room like this, settled on the board as if she already knew how the night would end. No one in that room knew her history. No one knew that before her mother's hospital bills started arriving in pink envelopes, before her father's job at the packaging plant chewed up his back, Amanda had been called something else. The clock stopper. At 13, she was a chess phenom, winning regional tournaments from a half-lit rec center on the east side of Detroit. Her hands moved faster than thought. Her strategies were called cold and surgical by local newspapers. But Amanda didn't play to hurt, she played to survive. Until one day, surviving meant taking a job where nobody looked you in the eye unless you missed a corner. "Step right up," Ethan said, sweeping his hand toward the board. "We've got a seat open for tonight's guest of honor." Chuckles followed. One woman clapped slowly. A man in suspenders looked amused. Amanda moved. Not rushed, not shy, just forward. She pushed the cart aside and walked toward the board like it was any other table, any other mess to clean. No one stopped her. No one offered a chair. No one really thought she'd sit. She sat. A short pause flickered through the room. Ethan leaned in. "She knows how the pieces move, right?" Someone laughed. "It's not checkers, sweetheart." Amanda looked at Ethan. "I'll take black." He blinked. "Feeling bold, are we?" She didn't answer. She just reset the pieces. Her fingers moved from memory, not hesitation. No flourishes, no spectacle. Just the clean, quiet rhythm of someone who had done this 1,000 times. In parks, in basements, on cracked boards, and clockless matches that still counted for everything. Ethan opened with confidence, smirking slightly as he played a sharp E4, his go-to from his Ivy League days. Amanda responded with C5. Sicilian defense, classic. Strong? A few people nearby sipped slower, eyebrows raised. 5 moves in, the laughter faded. 10 moves in, the room got uncomfortably quiet. At 13 moves, Ethan scratched his temple. At 19, his king had nowhere to go. Amanda spoke for the first time in minutes. "Checkmate." She stood. Not triumphantly, not even with relief, just as if she had done what needed to be done. "Thank you for the game, Mr. Brooks. I'll get back to cleaning now." No sarcasm, no fire, just dignity. She walked away, cartwheels squeaking softly against the polished floor. The elevator doors opened before anyone spoke again, and by the time they closed behind her, the silence in the room had grown so thick it muffled even the sound of the ventilation. Ethan Brooks didn't move. He sat there staring at the board, his bourbon untouched. His mind replayed every move. He didn't even remember what jokes he'd made before she sat down. All he could remember was how fast his rhythm fell apart, how her eyes never even left the board, how it felt less like he lost and more like he'd been dismantled, quietly, thoroughly, in front of people who would never let him forget it. "Should I pack the board up, sir?" a junior associate asked. Ethan didn't answer. He stood slowly, nodded once, then walked out of the lounge, shoes silent against the floor that Amanda had polished hours before. He didn't sleep that night. His penthouse, once a trophy of clean lines and cold views, felt off, like the walls were pushing in, like the glass windows had turned into mirrors. At 2:43 a.m., Ethan sat at his kitchen counter, eyes bleary, a laptop open in front of him. He typed Amanda Hopkins into search after search. LinkedIn, Facebook, tournament registries, even Reddit. Nothing matched. Nothing about her past. No chess rankings, no trophies, no blogs, no club rosters. Just a few outdated phone listings and one blurry image in a forgotten 2010 community blog. A young girl crouched over a folding chessboard, her braid tucked behind her ear. No caption. Just a ghost of who she used to be. He zoomed in on the girl's eyes. Steady. Focused. Just like tonight. He closed the laptop and stared at his reflection in the dark screen. What was he doing? Why did this matter? Was it pride? Ego? Or was it something else? The realization that for once, someone had seen him. Not the tailored suit, not the press release smile, just him, and still beat him without ever needing to prove anything. That kind of power didn't come from position. It came from knowing who you are, even when the world forgets. And Ethan Brooks, CEO of Brooks and Holt Enterprises, was starting to realize he didn't know Amanda Hopkins at all, but he needed to. The next morning, Ethan sat through 2 back-to-back investor calls and didn't hear a word. His assistant brought in fresh coffee, and he forgot to drink it. Reports slid across his desk, neatly tabbed, perfectly summarized. He barely touched them. The numbers didn't matter, not right now. All he could see was that board, and the way Amanda hadn't even blinked when she dismantled him. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the high-rise view that used to bring him comfort. Downtown Detroit stretched beyond the glass, like a circuit board of concrete and traffic, alive but indifferent. For years, he had convinced himself he understood this city, understood people, understood value. Then someone invisible walked into his lounge and taught him something without saying a word. He closed the blinds. By noon, he was pacing, not walking, pacing, like his mind was 5 moves ahead and still getting outplayed. He opened the internal directory on his laptop, searched Hopkins Amanda. There she was. Employee ID 9788. Role, custodial services details. Start date, January 2017. No direct supervisor, no emergency contact, just shift hours and a badge ID. That was it. No email, no phone number, no department bio, no history. It was like the system didn't know her, either. He considered calling HR, thought better of it. A request like that would trigger a dozen questions. Privacy flags, compliance issues, legal risk. This wasn't a scandal, yet. But it could become one if he poked too loudly. He took the service elevator down for the first time in 10 years. The air changed the moment the doors opened. It smelled like floor wax and old metal. The lights buzzed. Someone down the hall pushed a mop with quiet determination. A man in overalls walked by and gave Ethan a cautious glance, like seeing a ghost in a suit. He ignored them. He found the custodial break room. A small corkboard listed shifts. Amanda was marked off in red pen for 2 days. No reason given. No one around seemed to know why. He returned to his office and stared at the screen again. 1 game. That's all it had taken to make him obsessed. Not with revenge. Not with ego. With her. That night, Ethan stayed late. He told no one. At 10:47 p.m., he returned to the executive lounge, dimmed the lights, and reset the chessboard. White pieces facing him. Black side left open. He waited. The sound of the city outside was faint, a distant hum, like a machine that never powered off. He didn't check his phone, didn't open his laptop, just sat there, hands folded, heart steady. At 11:43 p.m., the cart squeaked into the room. Amanda pushed it without looking at him. Her eyes, as always, were quiet. She didn't freeze, didn't speak, just pushed the cart to its usual corner and began wiping the far table with slow, deliberate strokes. Ethan cleared his throat. "I didn't mean to humiliate you." "You didn't," she said, not looking up. "You asked for a game, I gave you one." He stood, moved slowly toward the board. "You're good." "Used to be," she replied, rinsing a cloth into a bucket. "A long time ago." "Where'd you learn?" She paused, glanced at the board. "My dad taught me. Played on weekends at Jefferson Park with the night shift guys. I watched, then I played. Tournaments stopped before high school." "Why?" Amanda looked at him. "Because dialysis machines aren't free, and my little brother still needed school lunches." Silence stretched between them. He looked down. "Play again?" "Not for show," she said. "Not for laughs. No audience, no cameras, just me." She studied him for a second, then walked to the table, pulled the black pieces toward her and said, "If you open with that weak king's gambit again, I'm flipping the board." He smiled, surprised, sat down. They played. This time, she didn't crush him. She let the game breathe, slowed the tempo, adjusted to his rhythm, met his hesitations with patience instead of punishment. She didn't go for a quick kill. She waited, reacted, adapted. Let the match unfold like a story instead of a warning. 34 moves later, it ended in a draw. Amanda stood. "I should mock before the wax sets." Ethan looked at the board. "You're the most disciplined player I've ever faced." She shrugged. "Discipline's easy when everything else in your life is chaos." She pushed the cart toward the door. "Maya." She paused. "I'd like to play again." She didn't turn around, but she said, "Then leave the board set." And just like that, she was gone. Only this time, Ethan didn't feel humiliated. He felt humbled. He didn't speak about Amanda to anyone. Not his assistant, not his board, not even to the therapist he saw twice a month out of obligation. Something had shifted, and it unsettled him more than any quarterly loss ever could. Every night for the next week, he stayed late. Sometimes she came, sometimes she didn't. When she did, they played. When she didn't, he waited. On the nights she skipped, he'd stare at the board alone, replaying their past games in his mind, moving her pieces for her, wondering what she'd see that he still missed. No words were exchanged outside the board. No mentions of jobs, no awkward jokes, no hierarchy. Just 2 people, facing each other across 64 squares, where nothing else mattered but the moves. Then one night, somewhere between the 15th and 16th move, he asked, "Why are you still here?" She didn't lift her eyes. "You mean this job?" "Yeah." She placed a bishop down gently. "Because it pays rent. Because it's safer than hoping someone sees you." He looked at her. "You could be coaching, competing." Amanda finally glanced up. "Not everyone gets second chances wrapped in mahogany and corner offices, Mr. Brooks." He didn't reply. That night, when she left, he stayed longer than usual. Didn't sip bourbon, didn't check his email, just stared at the seat she'd vacated, and thought about how some people build castles with stone, and others build cathedrals with silence. He didn't know what Amanda wanted from this, but he knew what he wanted: to play again, to learn, to understand how someone so unseen could play so visibly. 3 nights later, Ethan did something he hadn't done in over a decade. He left the office early. No driver, no staff updates, no itinerary. He slipped out through the parking garage, traded his tailored blazer for a hooded jacket, and drove himself to Eastview Heights. The streets were uneven, full of potholes that hadn't seen repair since the city stopped pretending to care. Traffic lights blinked at random. Buses ran late, or not at all. A few corner stores stood open under flickering neon signs, guarded by metal bars and half-lidded suspicion. He remembered reading a proposal years ago, one from Amanda's zip code actually, asking for Veritas to fund a community center in this area. The board had declined. "Too risky," someone said. "Not scalable," said another. And Ethan hadn't even noticed it cross his desk. Now he noticed everything. He parked outside the rec center near 53rd. The bricks were faded, windows patched with cardboard in one corner. But from inside he could hear something steady. Not music. Not voices. Movement. He stepped in through a side door. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A faint smell of sweat and old linoleum filled the air. Chessboards dotted the room, cheap plastic ones, worn smooth in the middle. Kids hunched over them, like soldiers in boot camp, squinting at pawns with serious faces. At the far end, Amanda knelt beside a table. She wasn't mopping tonight. She was teaching. Her voice was low, focused, patient. A boy with a gap-toothed smile asked about castling, and Amanda drew it out with her finger. Another kid asked if queens could jump over people like knights. Amanda laughed. The sound was different than her silence at work. Open, bright, full of something Ethan couldn't name. She hadn't seen him yet. He didn't interrupt. He leaned against a crooked beam near the doorway and watched. She belonged here more than she ever would in a break room with a mop bucket. When the session ended, Amanda passed out apples from a mesh grocery bag and reminded the kids about next week's drill. One girl hugged her leg without warning. Amanda froze for a second, then gently patted the girl's back before sending her off. Only after the last pair of sneakers squeaked away did Amanda turn and see Ethan. She didn't startle. "You followed me?" she asked, arms crossing over her sweatshirt. "I asked around. They said you volunteered here every Saturday." She raised an eyebrow. "You stalk all your chess opponents?" "Only the ones who make me rethink everything I know about strategy." Amanda didn't smile. "What do you want, Ethan?" He stepped forward, hands in his pockets. "I wanted to see where the real game happens." "You mean you wanted to know if I'm real?" He didn't deny it. Amanda leaned against the folding table, arms still crossed. "Let me guess, you want to write a check, fund this place, get a photo for the Veritas blog? No, don't come here with charity." "Good, because I'm not interested in being anyone's redemption arc." He pulled a folded flyer from his coat and set it on the table between them. It was for the Midwest Grand Invitational, bold letters, registration deadline highlighted. Amanda didn't move. "You should enter," Ethan said. "I'm 30. I mop floors for a living. I haven't competed in 10 years. You play every night? That's different. You train every time we sit across from each other?" Amanda picked up the flyer, scanned it. "You registered me already, didn't you?" He nodded. "Just initials. No company names, no fanfare." I don't need a sponsor. I'm not your sponsor. I'm your student. Amanda stared at him, long and hard, then said, "If I say no, will you pull your name too?" "Yeah, I will." She folded the flyer again, carefully. "I'll consider it." "Good. But if we train," she added, "it's equal ground, no personal coaches, no fancy boards. We play where I play, on my time." "Okay." "And if I win," she said, eyes narrowing, "you stop treating me like a puzzle you're trying to solve." Ethan nodded. "And if I win?" Amanda tucked the flyer into her back pocket. "Then you'll learn why winning doesn't mean understanding." That night, back in the executive lounge, Ethan removed the crystal and ivory board from the glass table. It had been imported from Switzerland, a gift from a shareholder 5 years ago. He replaced it with a scratched, travel-worn set, ordered online from a non-profit distributor. When Amanda walked in at 11:58 p.m., she paused. "No more crystal? I figured I should play on your terms." She looked at the board, then looked at him, then sat down. No words, no commentary. They just played. Move after move, the room softened. The power imbalance dissolved. It wasn't a CEO and a janitor anymore. It wasn't a teacher and a student. It was just two minds pushing each other forward. By the 29th move, Amanda had him locked in a positional trap he didn't see coming. He grinned as he tipped his king. "I'm still terrible at closed positions," he muttered. "Then I guess we better keep practicing." Something had shifted. Not in the world, in them. And that was enough for now. The fourth night was silent. No jokes. No warm-up. Just the creak of Amanda's cleaning cart sliding in through the double doors and the gentle click of the overhead lights humming to life. She didn't say hello, and Ethan didn't offer one. He was already seated, back straight, eyes fixed on the scratched plastic chessboard like it held answers to questions he hadn't dared ask. Amanda set the brakes on her cart, pulled off her gloves and crossed the room. She didn't glance at him, not once. She took the black side, same as always. He made the first move. Pawn to e4. She didn't move for nearly a full minute. When she finally did, her fingers moved with the grace of muscle memory and something more resolve, maybe. Stillness. She pushed her pawn to c5 and leaned back, not even looking at him. The game began. 6 moves in, Ethan felt it. She was playing sharper tonight. Not angry, not hostile, just precise. Like her pieces had something to prove. He didn't speak, didn't ask what changed. He could see it in the way she moved, how her hand hovered a second longer over every piece, how she didn't meet his gaze once. At move 14, she sacrificed her knight deliberately, aggressively. It rattled him. He reached for his queen too quickly and knocked over a pawn by mistake. Amanda said nothing, just raised an eyebrow before pressing her clock. She wasn't here for the ritual tonight. She was here to win. He leaned in, elbows on the table, and tried to recalibrate. She'd shifted her tempo on him. Again. She didn't play like a technician anymore. She played like a fighter. Her bishop took his rook clean off the board by move 23. It wasn't just a loss. It was a message. She didn't say thank you after the checkmate. She didn't stand right away. She stared at the board, then at him, and finally said, "You need to stop." "Stop what?" "Coming down here, playing games like this is just another branch of your growth strategy." His face stiffened. "That's not what this is, isn't it?" Amanda pushed back her chair. The stares are getting longer, the whispers louder. "You may be able to ignore that, but I can't. I'm not a ghost anymore, Ethan. And some people don't like when the invisible woman starts taking up space." He folded his hands. "You want me to stop?" She shook her head. I want you to understand there's a cost to being seen when you were never supposed to be noticed. You've earned it. That's not the point. Then what is? She stood, voice lower now. You get to lose a game and go back to your corner office. I lose a game, and someone says I was only here because of you. I win a game and someone says I must have cheated. Do you get that? There's no win that belongs just to me anymore, not now. He stared at the board. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't try to save me. Amanda turned, heading back to her cart. She snapped her gloves on, pulled the mop from its holster, and began cleaning the edges of the room like nothing had happened. Ethan didn't move. The board stayed set. The air thickened with unspoken tension. That night, Ethan left without another word, and for the first time, he didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed in his penthouse suite, surrounded by cold steel and soft light and emptiness. The silence felt louder than her voice ever did. The next night, Amanda entered the executive lounge to find the board already in play. One move, white pawn to e4. A sticky note rested beside it. Deal playing if you are. EB. She stared at it for a moment, then pulled the black pawn and slid it to c5. No note. No words, just her move. The next night, same thing. Pawn to d6. She countered with knight to f3. No. Knight 3, Ethan left a bishop out in the open. A trap, maybe. She didn't take it. Instead, she plucked with a pawn and left a note this time. You're not as sneaky as you think, hen. They kept going, night after night. Not a word spoken, not a hand shaken, just the game. It became a ritual, a quiet form of confession. The board became their language, their battleground, their olive branch. Outside of those nights, the world got louder. Amanda was called into HR that Friday. The room was white, cold. A fake fern sat in one corner like it was trying to convince her the place had warmth. Just a wellness check, the woman said, voice sugary and stiff. There've been questions. I mop floors, Amanda said. And sometimes play chess with the CEO, the woman added. Amanda didn't blink. After hours, no pay, no perks, just chess. The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. You must understand how it looks. I understand that looking is a privilege. Silence. Am I being written up? No. Then I have floors to finish. She walked out before they could dismiss her. That night she nearly skipped her round with Ethan. She made it all the way to the elevator, badge in hand, uniform starched, and then she turned around. She didn't know why. She just did. Inside the lounge, the board was waiting. And this time, Ethan had made a queen's sacrifice. It was subtle, clever, risky. Amanda stared at it, then smiled. She responded with a move that made his entire diagonal collapse. She left a note. Nice try, but you left your king exposed 3 moves ago. The next day, Ethan stood before the board of Brooks and Holt and made a proposal titled Eastview Chess and STEM Pilot Initiative. The board balked. The CFO raised an eyebrow. Funding a neighborhood program? After hours? Ethan's voice didn't waver. We've failed that part of the city before. This is how we start fixing it. One director leaned forward. Given the rumors, the optics, another added carefully. Ethan folded his hands. The optics are that we see talent, even when it's holding a mop instead of a MacBook. The proposal passed. Narrowly. 3 days later, Amanda received a visit at the rec center. A woman in a green suit introduced herself as a representative of the Brooks Initiative for Excellence. We'd like to fund your Saturday program. Supplies, transportation, new boards, anonymous donors. Amanda narrowed her eyes. This have anything to do with a tall guy who always plays white? The woman smiled, didn't answer. That evening, Amanda walked into the executive lounge. Ethan was there, standing by the window. She moved a piece. "Starting the game, huh?" he asked. "I figured I'd let you lead long enough." He smiled. "I had nothing to do with the donation," he added. "Of course you didn't. I didn't want to insult your pride." "It's not pride," she said softly, eyes on the board. "It's proof." "Of what?" "That I can move without being rescued." She pulled her knight forward. He followed with his rook. They played, and for the first time in a long time, it wasn't just a game. It was a promise. The buzz started slow, like steam before a boil. Amanda felt it in the way people looked at her, lingering, questioning. Conversations clipped short the moment she entered a hallway. Elevator rides turned silent. Co-workers who once nodded in passing now stared just a little too long before looking away. At first, she told herself it was paranoia, that maybe she was just hyper-aware since HR pulled her in for that little wellness chat. But by the end of the week, she knew better. It was the way Tony from sanitation stammered when she passed him in the break room, or how Linda from accounts suddenly got real interested in her phone every time Amanda walked by. Even the security guards, who'd once joked with her during night shifts, now offered short, stiff hellos with eyes glued to the floor. And the worst part? It wasn't just about her. It was about him, too. Ethan Brooks, CEO of Brooks & Holt. The man who now stayed late more nights than not, who no longer wore expensive suits but rolled up in hoodies and button-downs with the sleeves half folded like he belonged in the same world as the janitors and tech crews pulling double shifts. She didn't ask for this. She didn't ask for the rumors or the whispers or the way her name started showing up in sentences that had nothing to do with cleaning supplies. When she just wanted the game. That night, Amanda walked into the executive lounge earlier than usual. The lights were already on. The board was set. Ethan looked up from a folder. "You're early," he said. "I'm always early when I've got something on my mind." He studied her face. "Want to talk about it?" Okay. She walked to the board and sat down. Her fingers rested on the black palm like it was the only solid thing in the room. "Everyone's staring," she said quietly. "I know. They're not just staring at me. I know." She moved her pawn. "This can't go on." Ethan sighed. "Amanda, I don't need a mentor. I'm not trying to be one." "Then what are you trying to be?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes dropped to the board. "I don't know," he admitted. Amanda let the silence stretch. "It started out as a joke," she said. "Someone dared me to play. Someone mocked me. I sat down and it changed everything." He looked up. "Changed it how?" "I wasn't invisible anymore." "That's a good thing." She shook her head. "Not always." A long pause passed between them. "I don't want your name attached to my game," she said. "Not unless you're the one losing." Ethan smirked, despite himself. "I usually am." "Good." She moved her knife. The game continued, slower tonight, hesitant. By move 21, she had his bishop cornered. "You're upset," he said, softly. "No," she lied. "Yes, you are." He pressed the clock hard. "You don't know what it's like." "Then tell me." She looked up, eyes sharp. "To walk into a room and feel like everyone's already decided who you are? To be reminded, subtly, daily, that you're temporary? Disposable?" Ethan didn't flinch. "I've worked here for 5 years," Amanda said. 5 years cleaning the floors you all walk on, and nobody noticed me. Not once. Not until I embarrassed you in front of your whiskey-sipping friends." He swallowed. "You didn't embarrass me." "I did," she snapped. "And that was the first time anyone looked at me like I wasn't furniture. And now they look at me like I'm sleeping my way into a better life. You think that's what they believe? I know it is. She leaned in. And I need you to stop showing up like you're trying to prove something. I'm not trying to prove anything. Then why are you still playing? He took a breath. Because you make me better. Amanda blinked. I come down here because every night you show me something I forgot. How to think, how to listen, how to lose. And yeah, how to win without crushing someone. She looked at the board. You're not here because of guilt. No. Not because of pity. No. She studied his face. No lies there. Just tired honesty. I just want to play, he said finally. Amanda nodded, then quietly she whispered, So do I. But that night, when she finished her shift and stepped into the locker room to change, there was a note waiting in her locker. No name, no handwriting. Just 3 block-printed words on a torn sheet of printer paper. "K know your place." She stared at it for a long moment, not with fear, but something deeper. That quiet kind of anger that doesn't make a sound, but simmers. Bills. She crumpled the note and dropped it into the trash. But the feeling stayed. It lingered while she tied her shoes, while she walked to her car, while she sat in the driver's seat with the engine off, headlights washing over a dark, empty street. She'd seen this kind of pushback before. When her mother tried to get a raise at the grocery store she managed for 12 years. When her cousin got into college and someone on Facebook said it was just diversity points. When she won her first city chess tournament as a kid and one of the judges double-checked the score sheet like it couldn't possibly be correct. The world didn't like when people like her stepped into rooms they weren't invited to. But Amanda had spent too many years pretending she didn't care. Now she cared. The next night, she didn't say anything to Ethan when she entered the lounge. He just played. Moved her rook into a trap he didn't see coming. Took his queen on move 32. Offered a draw instead of a win. Because she didn't want his resignation. She wanted his respect. He looked at the board, puzzled. "That's a draw," she said. "I think you could have won." "I know." Feeling conflicting, overwhelming, until you... She leaned back. Because sometimes, the win isn't the point. She stood, gathering her things. "You okay?" he asked as she turned to leave. "No," she said. "But I'm still playing." He didn't stop her. But as she pushed her cart into the elevator, she didn't look back. And for the first time in a long time, Amanda Hopkins didn't feel like a pawn. She felt like a player. Ethan stayed behind after Amanda left, seated in silence with the board frozen mid-game. Her final move, that offer of a draw, echoed louder than any victory. It wasn't mercy. He knew her better than that. It was a message, one he couldn't quite decode yet. He sat there, elbows on the table, hands folded like prayer, staring at the queen she'd spared him. Downstairs, the rest of the building had gone still. Janitors vacuumed without small talk. The night shift passed quietly, and in that hush, something inside him began to turn. Amanda had drawn a line, and Ethan couldn't tell whether she wanted him to cross it or stay back. The next morning, she found another note in her locker. This one wasn't printed or anonymous. It was handwritten, neat cursive. From HR. "Please report to room 314 at 2:00 p.m. for a confidential meeting." She stared at it for a second, then crumpled it with a bitter laugh. By now, she knew the game. Same white walls, same polite smiles, same fake concern about conduct and professional boundaries. She showed up anyway. The woman waiting in the room had beige slacks and a cream sweater. Her badge said Cynthia. Her voice was soft, trained. "We just wanted to check in," Cynthia began, folding her hand. "There have been inquiries." "Inquiries," Amanda repeated. "About your presence in the executive lounge and your interactions with Mr. Brooks." Amanda didn't flinch. "We understand you sometimes play chess together after hours?" "Yes." "Could you describe the nature of that arrangement?" "No arrangement," Amanda said. "Just games." Cynthia hesitated. "Some might perceive it differently. Some—" "The optics, Miss Hopkins, are that I'm out of place," Amanda interrupted. "That a black woman in a janitor's uniform can't possibly belong at the table with a CEO?" "That's not what we're suggesting," Cynthia said, too quickly. "Isn't it?" Amanda said quietly. Cynthia leaned forward. "We just want to ensure nothing compromises your employment." Amanda stood. "Then stop letting rumors decide who belongs where." The woman blinked. "Am I being disciplined?" "No." "Then we're done." Amanda walked out, head high, but her stomach twisted like a knot being pulled tighter. She didn't go to the lounge that night. She cleaned the lower floors. She kept her earbuds in. She said little. But when she passed through the executive hallway near midnight, she couldn't help glancing in. The board was set. The move had been made. E4, a classic opening. Beside the board, a folded post-it with Ethan's clean handwriting. Still playing. "Your move." She stared for a long moment, then turned and walked away. She didn't touch the board, but she didn't ignore it either. For the next 4 nights they played in silence, one move at a time. No words, no faces, no contact, just the board. Amanda entered, cleaned quietly, studied the game, made her move, and left. Ethan responded the same way. Never there when she arrived, never writing more than the coordinates. On the 5th night, the game reached a fork. A risky gambit sat on the board. She saw it the second she entered. Queen sacrifice. He'd left himself vulnerable on purpose. She smiled, just slightly. A challenge. A dare. Instead of taking the bait, she countered from the flank. Subtle, sharp, brilliant. Then, for the first time in a week, she left a note. "Nice try, but your diagonal was exposed 3 moves ago. A." When Ethan found it the next day, he laughed out loud. Downstairs, Amanda was on her knees scrubbing a scuffed corner by the conference hall. She could hear the echo of his laugh through the vents. She didn't smile. Better. Her eyes gleamed with something like warmth. The next evening, Ethan sat in his office, staring at a blank page. It was supposed to be his quarterly proposal for the board, a restructuring plan, new initiatives. But all he could think about was Amanda. Not just her game, but her grit. The way she showed up even when they tried to push her out. The way she walked through the same doors people tried to close on her face and kept walking. He closed the file. He opened a new one. Typed 5 words. Community Initiative Chess Pilot Program. He pitched it 2 days later. The boardroom was quiet at first. Then came the questions. "You want to fund chess lessons?" "Yes." "For who?" "Kids." "Why chess?" "Because it teaches discipline, foresight, strategy, everything we say we value." "And who would run this?" Ethan met their eyes. "Someone who knows what it means to be underestimated." They approved it, narrowly. He didn't say Amanda's name. Not yet. 3 days later, a woman in a sharp green suit showed up at the Eastview Heights Rec Center, where Amanda volunteered on Saturdays. "We'd like to fund your Saturday program," she said. "New boards, supplies, transportation, no strings. Anonymous donor." Amanda narrowed her eyes. "Does this have anything to do with a tall guy who always plays white?" The woman just smiled. That night, Amanda walked into the executive lounge. Ethan was already there, standing, waiting, hands clasped like he was on trial. "You set that up," she said. He nodded. "I didn't ask for it." "And no." You trying to rescue me? No. I'm trying to follow you. She looked at him. Why? Then moved to the board. You starting the game tonight? He asked. Heaven, I'd figure. I've been letting you lead long enough. He smiled. She didn't. Not yet. They played. Focused. But when it ended in a draw, Amanda stood, wiping her hands on her uniform. Don't give me charity, she said, and don't try to turn me into your redemption arc. I know. You sure? Positive. She turned to leave, then stopped. If I play in the Midwest Invitational, she said, it'll be on one condition. He waited. No sponsors, no PR, no cameras, just chess. He nodded. Deal. And if I win? You will. She raised an eyebrow. He grinned. I'll clap like I've never seen you before. Amanda didn't smile, but her silence said everything. She walked out without another word, and behind her, for the first time in months, Ethan sat back with a quiet breath and whispered, She's not just playing the game, she's changing it. Amanda stared at her reflection in the hotel mirror, the early morning light slicing through half-closed curtains like thin blades. Her badge for the Midwest Grand Invitational hung loosely around her neck, swaying as she shifted her weight from foot to foot. She wasn't used to lanyards or fluorescent lights that hummed from overhead like judgment. She was used to bleach-scented floors and the hush of elevators at midnight. But this morning felt like walking into a room with every door halfway open and every eye halfway closed, waiting to see if she'd knock or kick them in. And in the ballroom turned to tournament hall, folding tables lined up like soldiers. Each one carried a regulation board, a plastic clock, and 2 chairs made of hard metal and half-hearted comfort. Amanda's sneakers squeaked slightly as she walked across the floor. She kept her head high but not defiant, just steady. People noticed her, that much was obvious. Some watched with curious glances, others with the clipped kind of politeness that never fully masked disbelief. She heard it already, in the whisper trailing behind her like static. That's the janitor, right? The one from Brooks and Holt? Thought this was a serious tournament. She ignored it, or tried to. Let it slide off like water on a waxed floor, because that's what she'd been trained to do. Not by coaches or mentors, but by life. Life had a way of pressing on your chest until you learned how to breathe around the weight. Her first match was against a tall, red-headed man in his 40s with glasses and an overly confident smile. Amanda, right? He said, holding out his hand. Didn't expect someone? Grassroots to make it here? She shook his hand anyway. Just here to play, she said. He chuckled as he sat. Brave of you. Amanda said nothing. She simply adjusted her seat, placed her fingers lightly on the black pawn in front of her, and waited for the clock. When it started, she didn't hesitate. 10 moves in, his expression had shifted from amused to unsure. 15, and he was blinking rapidly. By move 23, his king was backed into a corner, sweating out a mate that Amanda had prepared like a lunch she packed in advance. Checkmate came with the same calm as her mop strokes. No celebration, no gloating, just precision. He didn't shake her hand this time. She signed the match sheet and moved on. Outside the hall, Ethan leaned against a column in the lobby, phone in hand, unread notifications piling up behind his unread thoughts. He was dressed down for once, jeans, hoodie, and sneakers that looked too clean to have ever seen rain. His badge was flipped backward, hiding his name. He didn't approach Amanda between rounds. He didn't need to. She saw him. He nodded. That was enough. Her second opponent was younger, a teenage prodigy with earbuds still dangling from one ear and a water bottle labeled with motivational stickers. She played fast, aggressive, like she thought the speed alone would unsettle Amanda. But Amanda didn't chase. She slowed, pulled the tempo apart, waited for the girl to breathe too fast and make a mistake. The clock ticked, tension mounting in the air between them like a taut wire. By the time Amanda launched her final rook, it was already too late. Second wind. More whispers. Maybe she's not just here as a story. Dale still. She must have help. Amanda caught bits and pieces as she passed refreshment tables and nodding judges. She's got connections. She probably trained with someone big behind the scenes. She's not self-made. That one made her pause. She turned, scanning the group, but none of them held eye contact. She exhaled through her nose and kept walking. The day rolled on. Her third match came after lunch. Her opponent, a former collegiate champion, smirked as he sat. "Let me guess," he said. "You're the inspiration piece this year." She tilted her head. "Let me guess. You talk through games because you're afraid of silence." He blinked. He began. The match was grueling. He pressed every advantage he could, forcing Amanda to think deeper than she had all day. But that was fine. She liked pressure. It reminded her of home, of hospital bills and broken faucets, and nights when dinner was just peanut butter and a borrowed prayer. Jack came with 20 seconds left on her clock. He looked stunned. "Good game," she said, already rising. He didn't respond. By the end of the day, Amanda was undefeated. Reporters lingered by the doors. Photographers hovered just long enough to catch a frame. She felt the heat of their curiosity like stage lights, even though no one pointed the mic at her face yet. Not yet. In the hotel room, she let herself fall onto the bed without even changing out of her shoes. She stared at the ceiling. Her muscles ached in that honest way that comes from effort, not labor, but purpose. She closed her eyes for a moment, only to hear a soft knock. She opened the door to find Ethan standing there with 2 paper cups of weak coffee. "I didn't think you'd want room service," he said. "You thought right." They walked down the hall to the quiet lounge near the elevators. No one else was there. He passed her the cup, and they sat without speaking. After a while, Ethan asked, "You okay?" "I'm fine." He didn't believe her. She knew it. "I heard them," she said finally. "The whispers." He sipped quietly. "They think I'm riding some charity arc, that I got here because of you." "You didn't." "They won't believe that." "They don't have to." Amanda looked at him. "You ever feel like winning just makes people resent you more?" "All the time," Ethan said, "but winning anyway, that's the answer." She didn't smile, but her shoulders loosened a little. "I didn't come here to prove something," she said softly. "I came so the next girl, like me, doesn't have to." Ethan didn't reply right away. Then he said, "That's why you'll win." Amanda stood. "Good night, Ethan." He nodded. As she walked away, he called after her, "Just don't go easy on them tomorrow." She didn't turn. "I don't know how." Back in her room, Amanda set the badge on the nightstand, beside a battered travel set she'd carried for years. She opened it, lined up the pieces, and stared at the board. One pawned, moved to the center. Ready. The first move was always the hardest. But she was already playing, and tomorrow the board wouldn't just see strategy. It would see truth. The morning buzzed with a kind of tension Amanda hadn't felt since her mom's last surgery, the kind that sits behind your ribs and waits to collapse. The Midwest Grand Invitational was nearing its final round, and the air in the tournament hall carried a thick pressure, like everyone was waiting for someone to break. She arrived early, dressed the same as the day before. Navy blouse, scuffed sneakers, and a quiet readiness that didn't need to announce itself. The other players milled around in branded warm-ups and ironed button-downs, sipping overpriced lattes and checking their phones like they were scrolling for confidence. Amanda had no phone out, no coach in her corner, just the game inside her chest, and every piece she already saw lined up in her mind. She didn't speak as she passed the boards, didn't need to. She could feel the glances, the half-turned heads, the slow spread of awareness. People had seen her name on the bracket. They knew she was undefeated. But they still didn't know what to do with that. A white man in his 50s whispered behind a hand to a colleague, "You think she's real, or just a headline?" Amanda took her seat without flinching. Across from her sat a man she recognized from online streams, a hedge fund analyst who doubled as a semi-pro. He was dressed like he came from money and played like he'd never had to worry about losing it. He smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. "You ready, Miss Hopkins?" he asked, voice smooth like a stock pitch. She nodded. "Been ready." The clock started. He opened strong, Queen's Indian defense, sharp, measured, the kind of play that usually disoriented amateurs, but Amanda didn't blink. She traded a knight for tempo, castled early, and built a slow, steady wall that absorbed his energy like a tide pulling back before the wave crashes. 22 moves in, he hesitated, shifted in his chair, realized she wasn't reacting. She was planning. "Didn't expect you to know theory," he murmured. "I don't," she replied. He blinked. "I just know how to listen." By move 30, his center was cracked. By 36, he was in a net. Amanda didn't raise her eyes. She just moved a rook. Clean. Inevitable. Checkmate. Gasps fluttered through the room like loose paper caught in wind. She stood, signed her score sheet, and turned away. No fist pumps, no bows, just her. Backstage, near the hospitality area, Ethan was waiting. Not in a suit, not with a camera, just holding a to-go container with 2 egg sandwiches and a thermos of coffee he'd made himself. "You crushed him," he said, offering the container. She took it wordlessly, opened it, and began eating while standing. No ceremony. "Any nerves?" he asked. "I've lived on nerves," she replied, mouth full. "This is vacation." He smiled, but his smile faded when he noticed a folded piece of paper poking from the strap of her bag. "What's that?" The man didn't answer right away. She finished chewing, swallowed, then pulled it out and handed it to him. It typed, "No name, 3 words. Know your place." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Locker room. This morning. Security footage." "No need," she said calmly. "I don't want drama. I want wins." He folded the paper slowly, tucking it into his pocket like it might catch fire. "They're scared of you," he said. "This should be." That afternoon, Amanda's semi-final match was posted. Board 2, across from Ethan. They'd both made the cut. He looked at the list, then at her. "You sure you're okay with this?" he asked. "Did you come here to win?" "I came here to learn." She nodded. "Then let's play." The room was quieter than it had ever been. Spectators leaned in. Judges shifted in their chairs. Even the other players paused between games to watch, substituting names side by side. One, the CEO of Brooks & Holt. The other, the woman who used to clean his office. Amanda sat, pulled the black kiss toward her, and gave him one look. "No mercy," she said. "Wouldn't dream of it." The game began. It was slower this time, more deliberate, less about trying to beat each other and more about understanding. She pushed her pawns with surgical care. He developed his bishops cautiously. They traded minor pieces like secrets. Midway through, Amanda sacrificed a knight for board control. Ethan grinned at the boldness of it. Reckless. Calculated. He retaliated with a queen maneuver that boxed her in for 3 moves, until she reversed it with a pin that caught him off guard. The room held its breath. 45 minutes passed. They reached endgame. Amanda with a bishop and 2 pawns. Ethan with a rook and 1. And then she smiled, just faintly, and moved her bishop diagonally across the board. Stalemate. A draw. No victory, no loss, just equilibrium. They stared at the board for a long moment, neither speaking. Finally, Amanda said, More than fair. They stood. Somewhere in the crowd, someone clapped. Then others followed. Not for a winner, with the moment, for what it meant. That night, Amanda skipped the banquet. She returned to her hotel room, exhausted. But she couldn't sleep. She stood at the window, staring down at the Chicago streets, wondering what tomorrow would bring. She was in the finals now, a match away. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt the weight of it all. The pressure, the eyes, the expectations that didn't belong to her but stuck like lint. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. No matter what happens tomorrow, you already proved them wrong. She stared at the screen, then turned back to the travel chess set. She reset the board. This time she placed the queen in her hand, held it there for a while, and whispered, "Your move." Amanda walked into the tournament hall the next morning dressed the same as she had all week. No makeup, no new outfit, nothing to hide behind but her posture. But there was something different in the way she stepped across the carpet. She didn't hesitate, didn't check the names on the other boards, didn't look for Ethan. She already knew. Today was the final. The hall buzzed with media whispers, camera clicks just barely muted by velvet ropes and professional courtesy. A woman in a headset tried to intercept her for an interview. Amanda kept walking. The only sound she cared about was the faint click of her own sneakers hitting the floor. At board 1, a crisp nameplate had been placed in front of her. Amanda Hopkins, Eastview Heights. Across from her sat her final opponent. Tall, blonde, late 30s. He wore a pressed charcoal suit and a school crest on his breast pocket that Amanda didn't recognize. But she didn't need to. She'd played men like him before. Too many times. The kind who wore their confidence like armor and wielded condescension like a blade. He didn't stand when she approached. Didn't offer a hand. Just looked at her badge, then up at her face. "You made it all the way here?" he asked, lips curled slightly. Amanda sat. "Yes, I did." He adjusted his cufflinks. "Let's keep it clean." She looked straight into his eyes. They always do. The arbiter called time. The match began. He played fast. Like he wanted to intimidate. Amanda didn't speed up. She played slower, calmer, letting him misread her as unsure. A classic bait. 3 moves in, he overcommitted. 5 in, he lost tempo. She didn't pounce, she absorbed, pulled him into her rhythm like a tide. He frowned, shifted, cleared his throat. "You're good," he said. "I'm practiced." The game stretched past the 30-minute mark, then the 40. The audience didn't fidget. They leaned in. Even the commentators, tucked behind a table at the far end, went silent. The pieces moved like breath, like pulse, like memory, each one with a story Amanda could see playing out before it hit the wood. She gave up a pawn and gained 2 lanes. Traded a bishop and broke his center. He leaned forward, suddenly unsure. "Where did you train?" he asked. She didn't look up. "I trained in rec centers." He hesitated again. "And janitor closets." A ripple went through the crowd. He tried to mask his confusion behind a stiff smile. "Well, I had a grandmaster coach." Amanda moved her rook without pause. "That explains your weakness." He laughed, like she'd said something charming. But he knew. She had him. "Can you move 39? He paused. His king was boxed. The queen threat loomed just 4 spaces away. He stared at the board, blinking, searching for a way out. Amanda leaned back slightly. "You can resign." "I don't resign," he said, sharp. "And lose." He played. One last, desperate move. She looked at it for half a second, then delivered her final. "Checkmate." The arbiter stepped forward, calling the match. It echoed like a bell through the hall. People stood. Some clapped. Some stared. Cameras flashed, but Amanda didn't move. Her opponent didn't shake her hand. He just stood and walked off, face tight, shoulders locked. Amanda sat still another moment, like the wind hadn't quite reached her skin yet. Then, from the back of the room, slow and deliberate, came the sound of hands meeting. That clap, the clap. Amanda looked up. Ethan, in the crowd, wearing no name tag, no suit, just jeans and a windbreaker. He clapped again, then louder. Others joined. Some of them knew why. Most of them didn't. And they clapped, not just for her, for what it meant. A camera crew pushed in close, someone yelling her name, asking for a quote. She stepped away from the board without speaking. A volunteer offered her the glass trophy. Amanda took it, only for a second, then handed it back. "I'll pick it up later," she said. Outside, the sky was soft, overcast, spring chill in the wind. Amanda didn't stop walking until she was halfway down the block, far from the noise. Ethan caught up without speaking. They walked together for a bit in silence, shoes clicking on sidewalk, shoulders almost aligned. He finally said, "You didn't just win." Amanda looked sideways. He shook his head. "You rewrote it." She didn't respond right away, just kept walking. The trophy had never mattered. The applause would fade. But the feeling of being seen, being measured by her game and not her skin or uniform, that stayed. They passed a newsstand. Her name was already on the local paper. She didn't stop. "You hungry?" Ethan asked. "Diving." "Pizza. Only if it's cheap." He grinned. "Done." They didn't speak of chess the rest of the walk. Didn't have to. They both knew what it meant. Amanda had sat across from the best and proved she belonged there, not because someone let her, not because it was good PR, not because of luck, because she'd earned it, because she'd always had it. Now, finally, the world was catching up. The community center gym echoed with the sound of folding tables being dragged into place, metal legs clanking against hardwood. Amanda stood by the entrance, clipboard in hand, checking off names as staffers and volunteers filed in. Some were seasoned helpers from the neighborhood, others were new, drawn in by the buzz of the tournament, by the headlines, by the image of a janitor-turned-champion standing tall across a chessboard. She still hadn't picked up the trophy. It sat in a cardboard box at the Brooks Initiative's temporary office, wrapped in tissue, untouched since the morning after the win. Ethan had offered to deliver it. She told him no, not out of pride, but because she hadn't yet decided where or even if it belonged. "Coach Amanda," a young voice chirped. She looked down to see Malik, a wiry fifth grader with too long sleeves and sneakers a size too big. He held up a sheet of graph paper covered in scribbled chess notations. "I beat my cousin in 3 moves," he declared. "Was your cousin awake?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Malik grinned. He was so mad. She chuckled and handed him a pen. "Circle the best move, then go help Coach Lexi with the board setup." He ran off, nearly tripping over a chair leg in his excitement. Amanda watched him for a beat, then turned her attention to the remaining preparations. The room smelled like floor wax and morning cereal. The boombox in the corner sputtered out a soft jazz tune barely audible over the scraping chairs. It had been a month since the Midwest Grand Invitational. 32 days of meetings, forms, phone calls, questions. What next? Where does Amanda Hopkins go after she wins? She didn't have the full answer. Not yet. But she had a starting point. She had signed the papers last week, officially stepping into the full-time role of Director of Youth Chess Programming under the Brooks Initiative. It wasn't flashy. The office had no view, no espresso machine, but it had walls covered in drawings from the kids, a whiteboard filled with ideas, a coat rack with exactly one coat, hers. She didn't ask Ethan for help in setting up the new program. He gave it anyway, silently, like he always did when it really mattered. He hadn't missed a single Saturday. He showed up during lunch breaks, brought books on tactics, even cleaned up spilled juice without blinking. The kids called him Mr. E, though some just referred to him as the guy Coach Amanda always beats. Amanda hadn't beaten him every game. Not anymore. He'd learned. But even when she won, he never sulked, he never saw it as loss. He just said, "Thanks for the lesson," and reset the pieces. The gym had filled up now. Parents trickled in. Some stayed in the hallway, chatting in low voices. Others took seats on the bleachers, phones out, snapping blurry photos of their kids, hunched over boards. Amanda moved through the room like she belonged there. Not commanding, not towering, but steady. A calm presence, the kind that made others step up just by being near her. "Morning," Ethan said behind her. She turned. He held 2 paper cups. "Let me guess," she said. "Burnt corner coffee and 1 packet of sugar. You know me too well." They stood side by side near the chalkboard. "Full house today," he noted. "Yeah. Any nerves?" Not for me," she said, sipping. "But I want the kids to see that this matters. That they matter." He nodded slowly. "You know, I had a board meeting last night," he said after a pause. "Let me guess. Half of them want to turn the chess program into a campaign centerpiece?" "More or less." She gave a dry smile. "What did you say?" "I told them the spotlight belongs on the players, not the donors, and that, if they don't like it, they can find another CEO." Amanda glanced sideways at him. "You said that?" "I did. And they didn't fire you?" "Not yet." She laughed, short and soft. Then looked down at her coffee. "Ethan?" "Yeah?" "I still think about the first night." "The chess match?" "No, before that. When you said, 'She's just the maid.'" He went still. She didn't say it with anger, just truth. "I know," he said quietly. "It's haunted me ever since." She turned to face him. Not accusing, not bitter. "But you changed." He met her gaze. "No. You changed me." The door creaked open. Lexi waved them over. "Time to kick it off." Amanda walked to the center of the gym, all the kids watching now. She clapped her hands once. "All right, team," she called, voice rising just enough. "This is more than just a tournament. It's a conversation between you and the board, between what you know and what you're still learning." Some of the kids sat up straighter. Others fiddled with their pieces nervously. You don't have to win to be seen. You just have to play with honesty, with effort, and with respect for the game, and for yourselves. A murmur of excitement rolled through the group. She stepped back. "Start your clocks." The match began. Amanda didn't hover. She circled, watched, made notes, whispered quiet encouragement. Halfway through, she noticed a boy, Terrence, staring at his board, fists clenched. She crouched beside him. "What's going on?" she asked. "I blundered," he muttered. "I lost my queen." "And what else do you have?" He looked. "A knight. Some pawns." Amanda smiled. "And fight with those. Sometimes that's all we get in life. And it's still enough." Terrence nodded, moved a pawn forward with new confidence. Later, after the rounds had ended and the medals had been passed out, Amanda stood near the door, chatting with a parent who'd stayed behind. The gym was mostly empty now. Ethan appeared at her side again. "You didn't take credit for any of it?" he said. "I don't mean it. But you deserve it." Amanda looked around. At the boards being packed up, the kids laughing, the drawings taped to the wall. "I already got it." Then she added, "But I will finally pick up that trophy, not for me, for the office. Let the next girl who walks in see it and know exactly what's possible." Ethan smiled. Amanda didn't. She meant it too much. As they walked toward the parking lot, the sun began to set behind the old apartment buildings lining the block. Amanda paused. "I used to clean this street." Ethan looked around. "Does it feel different now?" She thought about it, then shook her head. "No, I do." He opened the passenger door for her. "Ready for Chapter 11? Amanda stepped in. "Only if I get to write it." The lights inside the City Hall auditorium flickered once, then steadied. Rows of mismatched chairs stretched down the aisle, filled with families from every corner of the city. Some in suits, others in hoodies and jeans, all waiting for the same thing. The air buzzed with the kind of quiet anticipation that builds only when something real is about to be recognized. At the back of the room, Amanda Hopkins stood just behind the curtain, hands clasped, shoulders still, eyes scanning a creased program she wasn't reading. "Ready?" a voice said softly beside her. "Ethan." He wore no tie, no executive polish, just a dark blue button-up and a familiar look of quiet support. She nodded, then exhaled once. "As I'll ever be." The MC took the mic on stage, his voice amplified just enough to echo slightly. "And now, before we conclude tonight's ceremony honoring civic leaders making a difference in youth mentorship and education, we'd like to recognize someone whose story started not in a spotlight, but in the silence between moves." Amanda blinked, her fingers curled around the edge of the curtain. "Please welcome our final honoree for the evening, Director of the Brooks Youth Chess Initiative, Amanda Hopkins." Applause rose, not polite, not prompted, real. When she stepped out onto the stage, she walked slowly, not out of hesitation but respect for the moment. The lights caught the soft navy fabric of her blazer, her flats making quiet taps against the hardwood floor. In the front row, she saw her students squirming in their seats, eyes wide with pride. Tasha grinned up at her like she was 10 feet tall. Amanda reached the podium and adjusted the mic. She looked out, not at the officials or the donors or the reporters in the back, but at the kids, at the janitors, the nurses, the parents with tired eyes and folded arms. Her people. "I wasn't always supposed to be seen," she began, voice calm and sure. "Not like this. Not by this many people. For a long time I moved through spaces where my job was to be invisible, where the only thing that spoke louder than my silence was the squeak of my shoes on a waxed floor. The room stilled, but even then, I carried something with me, a memory, a skill, a game that taught me more about life than most classrooms ever could." She glanced down at her notes, then folded them and set them aside. "I learned chess from my father, a steelworker. He taught me that even pawns matter, that sometimes the most overlooked piece is the one that reaches the end and changes everything." A few heads nodded. "I lost the game for a while," she continued. "Life happens, bills happen, people get sick, dreams get boxed up, but then someone challenged me to play again." Her eyes flicked to Ethan, who looked down with a small smile. "And when I sat back down at that board, I wasn't just playing for myself. I was playing for every girl who thought she had to shrink, for every boy who thought brilliance came with a price tag, for every custodian, cook, nurse, teacher, and tired single parent who's ever been called just—" She paused. "I was just the maid once." A few in the audience shifted uncomfortably. "But that's the thing about chess," she said, softer now. "You don't need a title to take control of the board. You just need the courage to move forward, one square at a time." The applause that followed wasn't thunderous. It didn't need to be. It was steady, heartfelt, grounded. As Amanda stepped away from the podium, a girl in the third row, no older than 7, whispered, "That's her," to her mother. Amanda heard it. She didn't smile. She placed the moment somewhere deep inside her, beside the memory of her father's rough hands moving pawns on a park bench, beside the feel of her old mop handle, beside the weight of a uniform that never fit quite right. Later that night, after the ceremony had ended and the chairs were being folded up by volunteers, Amanda stood in the emptying hall, holding a carved plaque shaped like a rook. The wood was smooth, the engraving simple. Just her name and a single line, changing the game. "You gonna hang that up?" Ethan asked, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. Amanda took one. "I might," she said. "Maybe in the hallway outside the office." He raised an eyebrow. "Not in the office itself?" She shook her head. "Nah, the kids need to see it on the way in, remind themselves what's possible." He nodded. "Speaking of, Tasha's got her first match in Springfield next week. You going?" "He's not going without me," Amanda said. "I promised her a bus ride playlist and a rematch if she wins." He smirked. "She's gonna beat you, you know. I hope she does." They stood quietly for a moment, watching as the last of the staff carried out extension cords and folding tables. Ethan sipped his coffee. "You ever think about that night?" he asked. She didn't need to ask which night. "All the time," she replied. "Not because of how it started, but because of what came after. You changed the whole board." "No," she said, "I just moved a piece." They left together, walking out into the cool spring air. The streetlights blinked to life overhead. Across the way, the windows of a bakery glowed gold with warmth, even at that hour. Amanda paused at the crosswalk. "You know what I've been thinking about?" Ethan waited. "I used to walk this block with my head down, always." He looked at her now, upright, steady, gaze fixed forward. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I look up, because I build something that looks back." He exhaled, long and quiet. "And tomorrow?" Amanda started across the street. "Tomorrow I teach Tasha how to checkmate with a knight and bishop. Then I help Jamal submit his college applications, and maybe," she turned to him with a small smirk, "maybe I'll finally let you win a game." He laughed. "You'll regret that." "No, I—" They crossed the street together, the sound of their steps blending into the rhythm of the city, alive, indifferent, but somehow changed. When Amanda got home, she unlocked the door to her small apartment and stepped inside. It was quiet, save for the ticking clock on the wall and the faint hum of the fridge. She placed the plaque on the table, beside 2 chess pieces, a pawn and a queen. She sat down, picked up the queen, ran her thumb along the base where the engraving still read, "Every move you made mattered." Then she picked up the pawn, set it across the board, and smiled, because the game wasn't over. It was only just beginning.